The dragon, in Christianity, a symbol of evil. It symbolizes Satan, the devil, who is defeated by the angels, especially by the archangel Michael. Thus, dragon slayers like St. George or St. Michael are adversaries of the devil. They are on the good side, so to speak. But was it always like that? Has the dragon always been a symbol of evil, and is it even fundamentally so? Let's take a closer look at the dragon. The dragon itself consists of the four elements. He breathes fire. Sometimes he is also described as having lion's paws, so he symbolizes the element fire. He has wings, so he also symbolizes the element of air. He is described as having scales, sometimes even fish scales, so he also symbolizes the element of water. And last but not least, of course, he is ultimately a lizard or even a snake crawling on his belly, and thus also symbolizes the element earth. Fire, water, earth and air. All four elements are united in the dragon, and thus the dragon is also ultimately the quintessence, indeed the fifth element. He is the etheric, yes, the life force itself. We have that in the name as well. Drakon means both snake and dragon. It comes from the Greek. Drakon is etymologically related to Dérkesthai, and that translates to something like perceive or see. It can even mean something like light. So the dragon Drakon is the seeing animal, the sharp-seeing animal, the perceiving animal. One could even interpret the enlightened animal. The dragon and the snake, they are omniscient. Python used to rule the oracle of Delphi. He is described as the daughter of Gaia and only later as the son of Gaia. That's where our name of the python snake comes from. Python was omniscient. That's why it was possible for the oracle of Delphi to prophesy through this very contact with Python, the contact with this all-knowing earth serpent. The dragon, the all-knowing, all-perceiving animal. Dragons are usually depicted as lizards with wings in four paws. However, there is another representation. This is the wyvern. The wyvern is basically a winged snake with only two legs. Where does this term of the wyvern come from? It comes from the Old French vivre and is actually etymologically related to life. The Latin term comes from the viper, vivipar, giving birth to life. And this viper then goes over to vivre, which means life, or this very winged snake with only two legs. The dragon, the snake or the wyvern is thus an animal that is omniscient, possesses a high consciousness and ultimately also gives birth to life. It is the ethereal. In Chinese, the dragon is a symbol of luck in the vast majority to this day. The Chinese dragon loves the water element. Usually his palace is in some kind of lake. Sometimes, however, it lives high up in the mountains. But even there, it is still closely connected with the formation of clouds. Ultimately, though, the Chinese dragon is formless or shape-shifting. Today, Fu Shi, the legendary first ruler of China, is usually depicted as a human with the lower body of a snake. He is a son of dragons. There have been representations of these luck-bringing dragons in China since about the 4th century BC. They are responsible for a rich harvest, for sufficient rain, but finally also for a deep inner knowledge. The dragon and the snake are therefore much more than just a symbol of evil. They are a symbol of the power of the earth quality. This is shown very beautifully in the Cathedral of Freising, namely in the Romanesque crypt. There is a column there which is also called the Beast Column. In the west of the column, we find many different dragon figures that devour people. In Christianity, the West is associated with the worldly, the earthly, or even the evil. In the East, however, a woman is depicted, and she is usually interpreted as Mary, as a bearer of hope towards the East, the spiritual direction. But she somehow does not look like Mary at all, not even the way Romanesque depictions of Mary often are. She holds a kind of flower in her hand, and this, somewhat plushly depicted flower, curls in at the top and shows a very similar structure to the Irminsul, the cosmic pillar, the world tree. Thus, she holds a long-stemmed flower in her hand, which curls into the earth at the bottom and blossoms at the top. This is the world axis. In the east we have the woman, the Great Mother, the Magna Mater or Gaia herself, and in the west the dragon. Woman and dragon. The woman and the serpent are very closely connected. In other words, the dragon is the spirit animal or an expression of the earth consciousness itself. The dragon is something that is spurned for centuries, even millennia, with the appearance of patriarchy, and was driven into darkness. So, for example, Yahweh, that is, God, wrestled with the dragon Rahab, and when he defeated him, he placed him in the center of the world and fixed him to the four ends of the world. This Jewish creation myth is thus closely connected with a dragon fight, and mostly it is patriarchal heroes who defeat the dragon. On the other hand, it is different with the women. If we look at George's legend, for example, George apparently frees a virgin who is under the tyranny of a dragon. But if we read the legend carefully, this woman takes her belt and ties it around the dragon, making the dragon quite tame. And so she leads it to the marketplace. And only in the marketplace, St. George kills the dragon in front of everyone present, as a proof that God is greater. But this woman controlled the dragon with her belt, and the belt is a sexual symbol. We know this, for example, in the boxing fight, do not hit below the belt, or the chastity belt, etc. So it is quite a strong sexual power symbol. Ultimately, it is so that the woman herself carries this life-giving dragon power, vivipar, the life-bearing power, and thus also the creational power of the earth itself, with all its wisdom and consciousness. It is so that since millennia, the dragon is suppressed, and meanwhile the earth defends itself vehemently against it. It awakens the dragon forces. Also, finally, the virus is such a life-giving force, because at least 30% of our DNA consists of viruses' RNA. Therefore, we actually have viruses embodied in us, and just as the dragon brings death, but can also be life-giving, viruses are consciousness-raising, evolution-promoting, but they can also be deadly in certain cases. The dragon, the Chinese dragon, the European dragon or the wyvern, the footed serpent, are very important symbols in geomancy and shamanism. Just as the dragon Nidhogger lives at the base of the world tree, in its roots, and ultimately forms the basis on which the world tree can unfold, so it is also represented here in the crypt in Freising on the beast column. The dragons are, so to speak, the elemental force of this Magna Mater, and she holds the axis mundi, the world axis, as an Irminsul, as a flower in her hand, and it then fans itself out in the spiritual. But this is only possible through what the earth gives us. The dragon, the life-bringer and omniscient animal. If you like this video about the dragon, take a look into Dragons and Serpents, Earth Mysteries and the Time of Change. You can find the link in the description of this video.